Hello, Culture Matters podcast. I'm so excited to introduce you to our guest. Before I do that, here's a quote just for this episode. Talent wins games, but teamwork and intelligence wins championships. Michael Jordan, our guest today, back again, another episode. A great friend of the Culture Matters podcast, the one and only founder of EPM, CEO, Eddy Perez. Thanks for coming back.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So we're at the annual MBA Annual, the Mortgage Bankers Association. I got a million questions. My first is, what is that for people that don't know what the MBA is?
For the average person out there, it's the trade association for, the best way to call the mortgage industry is really real estate finance. And the MBA handles both sides of the equation. So it's not just residential financing. So like if you're buying a residential home, it's also on the commercial side, multifamily, everything of that nature, which is ironically with all the members and the volume annually, the trade association represents 3 trillion to 4 trillion annually,
Wow.
the output that the industry does on the finance side.
Why is the MBA specifically important?
There's a why, because you're asking like one main point. The biggest point is obviously advocacy. It is a trade association. It is here to help represent the consumer and represent those individuals and those organizations that represent the consumers. Because at the end, if the organizations suffer at all or have any challenges, the one that's going to pay for it in the end is the consumer. So, lobbying with a very close second, what I say is they help you expand your knowledge base, and the education that they provide, I think, is invaluable. I mean, it's really hard to quantify because of how valuable it is.
How have you taken the education, the resources to add value to your organization and the people that you're closest to that don't, have the opportunity to participate?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing it started is when I did the Future Leaders program 11 years ago. I think it was a great program that teaches you every side of the equation. A lot of people just know what they're really good at in the industry. It could be the origination side, it could be the operation side, it could be the regulatory side, it could be the related issues today, it could be servicing. Well, they make you be good at all of them. You have to know all 6, and you have to be good enough to get that certification of a CMB, a certified mortgage banker, through that process of passing those areas. And that's what starts in different programs. And a lot of it started when I did Future Leaders and then expanded that to get my certification as a CMB.
What year did you do the Future Leaders?
2013.
And was that the first time you were involved in the MBA, or were you already involved?
We were members, and I'd been going to events. My first MBA event was 2010. We had become members in 2009. However, and it was at annual. I have not missed an annual since then. The only annual I missed was 2020 because it was canceled. So
Wow.
just thinking about that, this is what, my 14th, somewhere around there, 14th MBA annual. I've never missed one. I think it's very productive. I think it's extremely important. You also get to see so many friends that you build over time that you just don't see as much as you used to. Previously, before COVID, there were more conferences, more people were out and about. Ever since that, the world's changed. A lot of times we're only seeing people once a year.
What's the CMB?
Certified mortgage banker.
And how many people have done that?
1,200 through history.
In the whole, how long has the organization been in existence? Roughly.
So 100 years was 2013. That was the 100 year.
Oh, wow.
So we got 11.
Wow.
So it's 111 years old.
Only 1,200 in that long?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
How hard was it? 1 to 10, 1 low, 10 high. I guess, how do you define hard?
Yeah. How do you, I would probably
How would
put
you
it
define?
from education, I'd put it as a 10. Hard sometimes, do I think some sort of military special forces training is hard? Yeah, it's not even the same level, but I would say from an education standpoint, I'd put it at a 10.
When you had first finished the Future Leaders program to where you are today as the CEO of EPM, how would you describe the difference between where your organization was then after having finished the Future Leaders to where it is today?
Lots happened in 11 years, as you.
So that was 11 years.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it was 11 years. 2013 is when I did Future Leaders, and then I got my CMB in 2014. Yeah, I mean, a lot I mean, the industry has changed, the markets have changed. One of the things, social media was in its infancy back then. And today it's such an integral part of not only the organization, however, the industry as a whole and everybody that's in it and who's represented on it, who's been in it a long time and really paved the way for that. So we've grown exponentially. I'd say the biggest thing is organizationally, we probably really learned a lot on how to empower our own teams, how to build the cultures out, how to even understand culture in this industry, because our industry has a lot of outside factors that affect culture. The macro in this industry, with it being multi-trillion-dollar industry, as you would say, does have a lot of factors that play into it outside of your controls. Outside of, I'm a big firm believer the only thing you control is your mindset, and the biggest influence you have is in the micro and your four walls. There's a lot of macro. It could be interest rates. It could be not enough inventory today. It could be, consumer sentiment. It could be builder sentiment. So many things affect our industry at large scales that, culture is really hard to keep in balance. You have to be very diligent with it. So that's what I would probably tell you is the most that I've seen evolve from the organization standpoint, understanding those macros to then be able to explain it to your inside your four walls.
For those that are listening that have an interest in really succeeding at events or their association or maybe even the MBA, what tips do you have for how to get the most at, because you obviously 14 times, what tips, what advice would you have for someone listening to get the most out of participating in a gathering like this so that it's worth the investment of time, resources?
Get involved, be out. These events can be a lot of fun. There's a lot of celebrations, especially at annual. There's a lot of parties. That's where you'll start to engage and meet people. And it doesn't mean you have to drink or anything of that nature. Go to socialize, go to be curious, go to dinners. A lot of dinners get invited by, the MBA also holds events. They have a concert tonight. Go to those things, start talking to people, get involved, volunteer. As crazy as it sounds, it was at the MBA in 2012 when I started getting involved. When Dave Stevens, God rest his soul, who was MBA CEO, had me meet with who's become a good friend, Pete Mills. And that's why I started first on some committee in 2012, just to give you some perspective. And,
Wow.
12 years later, I'm now served on the board. On my fourth term serving, I was fundraising, more PAC chairman for the industry. I was IMB executive council and, chairman of the executive council. I've been on a host of other committees. I was part of Future Leaders. I got to be a panelist, which was really cool, a judge for 5-6 years after that. And then they rotate people out of classes and bring new people recently into classes, what I think is very positive. Just get involved. You'll make a lot of friends. You'll meet a lot of people. You'll get to know a lot of individuals that also in the course of business can help guide you, mentor you if you have a situation or if you're just bouncing around. And a lot of times they'll call you to get your own thoughts. And that always shows that you're staying top of mind.
How important is it to be around successful people in the industry that you're in, or the person listening is in?
My father used to say to me, tell me who your friends are and I'll tell you who you are. Just that simple. It's tell me who you associate with. I'm going to tell you who you are. I've seen it out there. You hang out with, you've seen these things online. You hang out with 4 millionaires, you'll become the fifth. If you hang out with 4 losers, you'll become the fifth. It's one of those that the dichotomy of the areas that you hang out with will influence you, even if it's unbeknownst to you, or even if it's below your level of awareness. But you will notice the differences, because in the end, positive creates more positive and negative creates more negative. It's just that simple. It's there's an old, I think it was Japanese proverb that said that there's a positive dog and a negative dog that lives in all of us. And then the question is, who's going to win? It's whichever one you feed. And it's the same premise that I would say towards that.
Well, how about this? We're in October of 2024. What's a epiphany or realization or takeaway from this gathering?
that I don't think my brethren, unfortunately, I say this with a lot of great sadness, are going to make the decisions they need to. I think they're going to wait till the macro is going to influence their business, and some will be able to hold off and do that. It will happen because eventually, interest rates will drop down enough. One of the biggest opportunities that people aren't even talking about is building relationships with builders, because builders are going to keep building because we're about 4 or 5 million homes in a shortage. So you're going to start seeing so many more builders keep building and expanding, and that's an opportunity for business. And I don't think they're going to make the tough decisions. I think they made some of them. I just don't. It's kind of what I said. The difference between 2008, what happened in this industry, and what happened now is, 2008, it was like, when you lose somebody from a heart attack, it was instant, fast, and there was shock and awe. This one, unfortunately, is like somebody who's battled cancer for 3 or 4 years and has gone down that road this last few years. And the sad reality is they're just not listening to the data and understanding the data. There's just not enough business out there in the sense of refinances that carry the industry for almost 20 years. I heard it today, it was like 85, 86% or below 5% interest rates. Yeah, sure, some second mortgages can kick in if somebody's gotten themselves into debt, or if they want to make an investment or they want to do a home improvement. That constant churning of refinances, there's so many people, it was 70 something percent or below 4%.
So that makes it what? Purchase market and cash out refi. But the purchase market isn't, from if I've learned from you over time, if there's less supply, that kind of creates, can you speak to that?
Yeah, there's definitely, and we're in that market right now. They're definitely very low supply. That's why I say builders are a great opportunity, especially because how I've been explained to me by builders is, from when they buy the land to somebody moves in is about a 2-year process. And in 2022, builder sentiment went really low when interest rates went up. And they were very, very concerned that people wouldn't buy homes. Well, I don't really want to say it's not what they took in consideration, because I don't know what was going on with them. I'm not in those meetings. However, it was very evident there that we were 4 million homes in the hole. Like, we needed 4 just to meet current demand.
Wow.
And they shouldn't have worried, because somebody else was going to buy it. Even though if the payments went up, there are still people that can afford the mortgages. So they backed off. But then in early 23, builder sentiment shot up, and it shot up this year. So you're going to see more inventory showing up in 25, 26, 27, 28. That's where I always tell my brother in the origination space, start slowly building in and working with builders. That could be a huge opportunity, because they're actually creating inventory. You're not waiting for somebody to sell your house, because a builder is creating the inventory. They're essentially just a construction company. They want you to finance it, take care of it. And inventory is very low. That's why people are saying, oh, I think housing prices are going to drop. It's really tough to drop when you have something that is in such high demand, record demand, because of demographics and ages and the first-time homebuyer age and the population that boomed in Gen Y and Gen Z. It's going to be very hard to fill that without building more and more. And what happened was, after the financial crash, 2010 to 2019, that whole decade, we built something like 5.9 million homes. And the last time it was that low was in 1930 to 1939, through the Great Depression. We built 5.4 million.
Wow.
So because of what happened in 08, when in that market we had oversupply, not enough demand, because my generation, Gen X, was very small. So what was happening is that first-time home buyer market and second-time home buyer market was going down. It was like a V. Now it's on the back up. So that's why you need more and more of it.
Back up as in the population. There's more of them, more of those.
Gen Y was larger than the boomers, and Gen Z is a little bit smaller than them. However, it's still a pretty large group. Gen X, my generation, was extremely small.
What about this idea that people can't afford homes?
That's such shock jock bullshit of the news. I'm not gonna sit here and tell you houses aren't more expensive. I'm not gonna sit here and tell you that. However, people's incomes are up. Inflation is a real thing, and sometimes it's not horrible inflation, because people may be mad at their grocery bill, which I completely understand. However, they're not mad at their houses have doubled and tripled. Everything comes with a price, and you just got to understand it. Can they not afford it? I have a hard time with that, only for the simple fact of this. Work harder. Well, I do work hard. 100 years ago, people worked an average of 70 hours a week. Today, they work 39 hours. So with more time, yeah, if you can't afford it, then just work more. And I know that some people don't want to hear that. However, then work on your skills, take chances, take risks, and then you can get yourself out of that situation. However, I've seen some people, it's crazy. So I'm Cuban, first generation born in this country, as you know, but to the listeners out there. And coincidentally, recently, I don't know why, in certain towns, this happened to me in Vegas, West Palm, Austin. Cubans that have only been in this country 4 or 5 years are driving a truckload of Uber. So mind this, they've only been here 4 or 5 years. Most of them now own multiple cars. They drive multiple services for Uber. Yeah, they may have to work 60, 70 hours. It may be weird hours. However, coming from where they came from, they're like, this country's great. How the heck can I do this in such a short while? Why? Because they were willing to do the tough things that people didn't want to do. You either have to get comfortable being comfortable or get comfortable going for growth. And it's just that simple, because it really boils down to, do you want to be complacent or do you want to thrive? And that just may require 5, 10, 15 hours more, and you can do it. So anybody that can't afford a home, I would challenge them to look in the mirror and take more self-responsibility for themselves, because I know that you can do it. I mean, I see it time and time again. I hear all those stories. 40% of our businesses is because it's first-time home buyer. We're heavy first-time home buyer. So a lot of those are Hispanic, because the number one first-time home buyer demographic is Hispanics in this country above any other ethnicity. And yeah, you'll see multiple jobs. You'll see gig economy. You'll see everything, because they have a determination that they want their own space. They want their own world. They want their own freedom. So it sells. There's a lot to be said after the fairness doctrine was removed in the 80s, that media can really push any message that they want. And there's a lot of money made in throwing things a little outlandish.
How's the energy, or what's the feeling of MBA this year versus last?
Wow. So I haven't gotten the numbers yet, because I'm in the board meeting tomorrow. However, they were pleasantly surprised. It was like 10, 20% more than they were planning to show up. I think this is the most that has shown up since 2019.
Wow.
And being down there, so many new faces, so that's good. So many new vendors, so many new people. There is definitely a younger vibe that's here that I thought has been missing for a really, really long time. It's good to know that I'm not one of the younger ones here after having been here for so many years and being in the industry 20 something years. It is weird when I'm still one of the younger ones in rooms. So I see a lot of positive momentum moving forward. We got to do a better job of it. But the vibe has been electric downstairs of this hotel. I mean, everywhere I've gone, I haven't really seen people smile like this in quite a few years.
So 2025, what's your word?
Damn, didn't even think about it. What is my word? Courage. Be courageous. Have courage. Take the risks. Take the chances.
Thank you for coming back. I'm so excited to look back on this in a year and think about where we've come from and the next annual. Anyone listening to this, I challenge you to listen to every episode Eddy has been on the Culture Matters podcast. Take a week off, or no, don't do that, because you need to buy your home and get your
you need to work.
life together. But invest time in listening to Eddy on the Culture Matters podcast. Follow Eddy, and we will see you next time on the Culture Matters podcast. Thanks for coming on.
My pleasure.